Noodling on harnesses.
All right. Just setting up the stream here. Yeah, I've been working on updating my dream system on the fly loop flywheel. The nightly dream system certainly seems to be the biggest impact I've had in harness lately. Every dream relates to the next and the previous. I spent some time on that today.
This is something I must start poaching now, your dream system. For
Yeah, it's definitely when it comes to reinforcement, it's certainly one of the best tricks I've seen recently.
If you haven't already, you should start collecting your LLM logs and storing them outside of your environment.
LLM logs? Like, what do you mean by LLM logs?
The transcripts going back and forth.
Oh, I store those as issues on GitHub. It's easy. It's in the Elder Late, and it's SEO optimized too, which isn't so bad.
But is your accent, Jed, on storing or on outside the environment? Because I'm not sure
The
which point you're
emphasis is
making.
on outside the environment.
Why?
So, uh, I only learned this recently. Claude Code cuts your chat history to last 30 days in the
Hmm.
Claude Code environment. I think it's been around now for maybe a month. But once I realized a lot of that history went away, I had to rebuild something that allows me to normalize all my chat logs across all of my systems to
Oh, I see
the
what you're
moment
saying.
of
Yeah,
each bucket.
I don't store those in Claude or ChatGPT for that reason. ChatGPT is better. It remembers longer than 30 days. But there's you've got the connectors
I'm
in
not talking
Claude.
about the web interface, Ruff, just
No,
the Claude Code
I don't
instance.
I don't use that either. But by storing them as an MCP, you can always refer to it as part of the MCP hooks. So like Stu's RuveNet Brain is a perfect example of how to do that. It kind of gives you infinite memory of the things you're building and doing.
But it's taking interpreted summaries of whatever the chat or the context was, right? Not the raw context.
Mm, depends on what you're trying to do, but generally speaking, you don't need the
I'm
raw.
trying to preserve the entire raw context so that when a smarter model comes along, it can interpret wherever I went wrong and see if it can come up with a different direction that I hadn't already thought about or already explored.
Yeah,
I
I think
have
we're probably
I
doing the
have
same
a
thing, just in a different way.
yeah, I have a new
Basically,
uh, sorry, John.
basically trying to find to in the future as models get smarter, revisit what I thought were dead ends and potentially find something past them.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Cool.
The model really doesn't matter at this point, particularly it's the persistence of the memory that matters more than the model is interpretation of it. So
But your memory,
that's where the harness adapts versus so an adaptive harness that changes and optimizes itself and then has a static model that acts as a kind of I don't know implementer of sorts is less the model is less important than the harness, at least for things I'm building. All
when you
right.
say memory, is it still an interpretation or a summary of the conversation?
Mostly, yeah, because you don't need the explicit. You can get the explicit for things like commits and PRs and other sources, which can give you the sort of explicit requirements or details. What I really need is the graph overlay that describes how all those decisions and implementations and actions were made originally, which works better than sort of a raw log of it, just a bunch of stuff that happened, which 99% of which isn't really particularly meaningful. What I look for is the result of what was done and what the result of those things that were done meant, which is a summary for the most part, and it's contextually lighter.
So you're not capturing the reasoning traces or the tool calls.
I am capturing those things when and if I need them, but for most things I don't. So
Got it.
depending on the type of application, certain things require, the reasoning to be captured for whatever reason. Like I do that through the witness chain and the what I call my agentic cow system. But for the most part, unless I'm like, using a system that is um, require legal step-by-step recreation, like a loss system or something, I don't do it. All right, top of the hour, guys. What's the date today? We're already the 13th.
13.
I took a vacation last week to the east coast of Canada. Well, weather-wise, it was interesting. I went from like 34 degrees Celsius on Wednesday to 13 degrees Celsius on Thursday in Newfoundland. But it was a nice it was odd to experience 13-degree weather in August. I'll give you that. But it was nice for me, but apparently the locals aren't big fans of 13-degree summer weather. They're all complaining about it. But I don't know if anyone's ever been to Newfoundland. Beautiful, beautiful rock in the middle of the North Atlantic. Um, my son
No.
surfed the North
Uh,
Atlantic. It was cold.
I saw you were at Cape Spear. I was there just last year.
Oh yeah, Cape Spear. It was sunny and nice the day we went. Luckily, cold though, and
Yeah,
we took a whale watching tour. We saw a minke whale. If you're familiar,
yeah.
it's a small Ballantine. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Whale, a filter feeding whale, I guess. My kids explain
There's
it better
a
than.
beach on the south coast of Newfoundland where we actually saw them like literally, I don't know, it must have been 8 meters from the shoreline. It was absolutely crazy. They were following the what they call it the the fish. There's like this fish.
Caitlin.
Caitlin,
Caitlin, I
they're
think they
following
call it.
the Caitlin
Yeah.
roll. That's right. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, it's something. Apparently, the day after we went on this little whale watching tour, the orcas showed up, but we didn't see any orcas. That
Yeah,
would have been
my wife doesn't
that
like
would.
boats, so we wouldn't do that.
What I want to know is
Well,
if Finn had an audience for his surfing, or was it just sort of like him out in the water?
this was actually Nova Scotia, just north of Halifax, and it's actually famous for East Coast surfing. So there was a bunch of crazy other people surfing that day. Yeah, somehow he always gets an audience. That's kind of his thing. But it was fun. You wouldn't catch me going into those waves, that's for sure. It's cold and foggy at the same time. But it was nice to get away. I feel like I missed a ton of things last week while I was away, although I was busy creating regardless. What did I miss? Nick? Anything exciting happened last week?
Well, we were working really hard on Cognitum One. I took the opportunity to go up to Montebello um for a couple of days because I'm like, if Reuven's going to be gone, this might be the time to do it. But yeah, I there was a few events. There's one coming up in Stavanger in Norway. So I'm pretty excited about that. Like there's only 100,000 people or so there, and he's got like 100 signups almost. So it's really impressive. Um, Antwerp, Mondeweep's brother. But yeah, it's
Oh,
it's
so
been going. It's been
Montouk's
going. I think that's what I'm
brother.
being told. That's what I'm being told. So I was referred to him, and I didn't really put two and two together, but I'm being told it's Mondu's brother. I vetted him the same way I would anyone else. But I probably would have given him a little a little easier pathway through if I realized it was Mondu's brother. But
Oh,
um,
yeah, certainly. So our chances of him going from a Agentic meetup to a Claude meetup
yeah.
are hopefully hopefully lower.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
We
having a
we've
bit of a problem with that, guys. Some folks, starting with the Agenix Foundation meetups and putting that as their experience, and then becoming the local Claude code meetup person. So I've run into that a few times, but you know, just working that into my pitch initially, like, hey, if you end up as the local Claude guy, like don't forget us kind of thing. Uh, But anyways, and then we had, well, the big one was that impromptu meetup you did in Halifax while you were there. So I got some good feedback from participants on that.
Yeah, well, I met the Halifax crew, and a bunch of my old friends from 30 years ago showed up. It was a nice little spot. I think it was a venue called Volta, which is basically the sort of startup accelerator of sorts for the local community. I don't know if any of you have ever been to Halifax, Nova Scotia. It's a relatively small city, around I think around 300,000 people, and famous for having several universities. And a quite a nice little AI community is seems to be blossoming in that location at this point. So yeah, we met up. I gave them the old sort of random here's what we're building and how we're doing it presentation. It seemed to have gone pretty well, I think. No one told me I was crazy, except for one guy said I was crazy and left. But other than that guy, there's always one.
Yeah, Akenna, I spoke with Akenna a couple of days ago, and he like helping him get set up as a cognitive consultant, and he was really happy that you took the time and did that session with that group. And he said it was a little different than seeing you over Zoom, like when Roof's going for an hour or two, it sort of winds up from a small introduction into wherever the current here and now is. So he was pretty impressed and really thankful that you did that.
We ended up in Crazy Land. I because last week I actually created a mycelium networking system, inspired by some work we were doing with the Cisco crew. And basically, I unveiled that at the meetup. And basically, it's a system that uses the interconnected network that exists. It's a fungal network that basically exists around the entire planet. And I'm like, oh, what if we could plug into that and use that as a kind of environmental sensor? And needless to say, that took us down a literal rabbit hole, which is interesting. For those who aren't familiar with the mycelial network, apparently the mycelial network, which it kind of encapsulates the entire planet in a kind of secondary, network that communicates with various plant life, essentially. If you strung that out end to end, it would go all the way to the nearest star, which is 400 quadrillion miles away. I'm not making that number up, and all the way back again. That's how sort of intricate this network is. Now it's a very low latent sort of decentralized networking system, which is interesting. But maybe I'll jump into that demo here in a bit. But that was an interesting rabbit hole, needless to say. Um, lots of crazy things like that. What else we got here today? We got Dragon. How's it going? I'm just randomly picking people out of the audience here.
Yeah, good, good. Being busy, building harnesses and things, Cognitum related stuff. So not that much time for the open source project, and but trying to keep up, doing at least some PRs if community submits some requests, and from time to time some issue gets reported or maybe new feature requested. But yeah, trying to be helpful where I can.
Yeah, and how's the QE fleet coming for you?
Oh, they are quite good. I think, let me double check, but 400 and something stars. Did I reach? No, it's still not 450, 443 right now, but it's going nice, more than 7 to 8,000 downloads a week. Let me check if that also increased, because there were some increase in the last couple of weeks. Ooh, 24,000 weekly downloads this week. So
Well,
it looks like 3 times spiked since the last week.
If you guys haven't already starred his repo or any of our crew's repo, make sure you do it. A star is cheap and easy for us to give, so go ahead and do that. Speaking of stars, Jed, I saw you did a new thing this morning. Was it? I gave you a star. I didn't have a chance to dig too deeply into what have you built?
So Seam is predominantly a proxy that will inject credentials into API requests that originate from agents. That way I keep the sensitive stuff out of context. More recently, I've been extending Seam to limit which API calls can be made because certain providers' API keys do not have granular permissions. This is how I'm now able to get agents to drive Rackspace Spot clusters governed by a specific budget. So in practice, that's how I'm now able to scale headless agents, writing code, working on systems across, at the moment, half a dozen servers, and still
Okay.
maintaining and still avoiding the race conditions that you'd otherwise run into between them.
And that's, I noticed, built in Go. Is that the predominant sort of server that you used?
I didn't make that decision, so it must have been. I'm assuming Go. I assume it was because Go is also how many networking tools and proxies are built. But it was
Okay.
not a decision I made. I know Rust is the flavor of the I guess, year, but I'm sure it doesn't solve every problem.
Doesn't it? No, I'm just kidding. It goes great for certain things. I just, once you're kind of stuck in the, I don't know, and I'm not sure it's a rut, it's hard to leave the sort of, environment, or in my case, I don't like mixing and matching too many things. But if you're creating like server side or servers themselves, Go is a really nice option. I think I'm just more familiar at this point with Rust. That's so I stick with what I kind of know, which is a bad reason, I freely admit. Share your link and make sure everyone gives a star. I see Michael also shared a link here to the OIA application matrix. What are we looking at here? I think it was Michael that shared that. One sec. Let me find the share button here. Zoom seems to have went super small for me. Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey,
What-
so we've been working on this gradually, and we now have a form that you can fill out to submit. And Brad did us a solid by submitting his repository, and it made it all the way through the process, which frankly surprised me. And I have it on my list to analyze how his repository was evaluated and processed, and I'm going to make adjustments to make sure that that's all on the up and up. But it's also, publicly available in this repository for anyone else to inspect or analyze, etc. But if you'll notice, there's now a new entry on the page proper that shows Brad's project, and it's cast in a different form than the others, having been submitted a certain way. But it's all kind of coming together. So pretty exciting.
Cool.
And anyone that has input on how the processing and evaluation gets done, the rigor, etc., yada yada yada, it's all in there. So and open to pull requests or changes or dissenting opinions.
We should make this a
So
link
the intake
to
for this. So I can say the intake for this will now accept any GitHub project, and it assesses it against not just OAC, but I always get the acronym, but other frameworks also, right? So the idea essentially is if you're interested in a repo, either because it's your own and you just want to see how these assessment frameworks assess your project, or someone else's, just getting it's a way to get an assessment and a way to share with other people what you think is interesting. Yeah.
cool.
We also
And,
added a README button there so that you can start to spread the word on your repo about Brad, you could stick one on the list of your other ones there. That will help socialize this idea of the of OIA across the community.
Oh, breaking up a little bit, but yeah, and
Sorry.
again, the most, I know this sounds a little superficial, but the most useful thing that a lot of these early projects can get is just a little star from us. So if you can go and just give it a little star, or even better, give it a fork, you really help these projects kind of get a little bit more visibility. And what's interesting is the starring will show up in anyone that follows you as well. So when I star it, it'll show up in the people who follow me on my GitHub so it kind of gives a nice little boost. So
And I have to say, going through the process, really easy to do. This is an older repo that doesn't quite fit with the normal, and it still was really easy process. So thumbs up. I have a new
appreciate that.
one that's more traditional that I'll try out too. So, but thank you very much for setting this up.
yeah,
Thanks for
Thanks,
testing
Mark.
it. I really appreciate it. I think we can also add something to kind of promote the starring of things. And I think it's also, we could even show the number of stars on the repo there. I wonder, like Ruve, if you could look at this capability that I added to kind of extend or to kind of, I create a prompt for each repo that says this is how you would improve it in certain directions, whether or not this is accurate, rigorous, superfluous.
I like the idea. Now, I'm going to give you my honest opinion because I can't help
Yeah.
myself. Now, the way that I would handle this kind of generate self-improvement prompt would be using, again, the kind of flywheel harness style that I use within my Dream sort of system. And I'm on my Dream kick today, so that's why I keep mentioning
Okay.
it. Now, this isn't bad, but when you look like, let me go to my dream cycle. So this is last night's dream cycle, just random from just to see what, as an example. What I'm doing here, is I'm doing a kind of flywheel harness. The harness says, what does it do? How does it work? How can I make it better? Then what it does is it attempts to try different paths. Most of the paths result in dead ends. Think of like Darwin, right? And paths that don't work get abandoned, but they also don't get retried later. If I attempt to try to improve it again, I'm going to go back and say, did we already try that thing? And if we did, we're not going to try it again. Now, what that ends up doing is providing the mechanism, in this case, that is comparing it to the latest research. You'll see there's research reports coming out from yesterday, something called Toki, I guess, and other related things, and then it grades it, right, using a rubric structure. Now, I don't always implement things, and sometimes a B grade thing is actually better than an A grade just because I find it more interesting. And then what the system does is based on different metrics, it'll not only suggest what's better and how it relates to sort of competitors and other areas. If you go into the PR, you'll see a ton of PRs. You'll see that certain PRs in this case are actually fully implemented. Now, and to get to a point of like an actual implemented component versus just a suggested research requires a kind of rigorous, I don't want to burn tokens just for no reason. And to be honest, I don't always implement these. So this particular example of a kind of how to improve would have gone through the exhaustive process of the Darwin approach, the flywheel, and several other sort of harnesses that allowed it to get to a kind of measurable improvement. And if it wasn't capable of actually getting to a measurable improvement, it would have been abandoned long before the PR was ever created. Now, what this does is a couple things. Now, as you know, I'm a bit of a sort of I don't know what the right term is, code socialist, techno socialist. So what I'm trying to do is twofold. I want to make sure that discoveries are both novel, never been done before, and two, if they verifiably never been done before, or at least never been done in a public setting before, I want to be able to basically create a cryptographic signature and proof of that thing that was done before someone else can show up and try to patent that particular thing. So I'm basically a patent bully. I'm creating this because obviously make my system as good as humanly possible, or maybe artificially humanly possible. But I also want to make the system defensible against patent trolls. I am a patent troll, but I'm a patent troll in the opposite concept of a patent troll. My patents or my prior art are being created purely to protect others from litigation against things that might be created later. So this acts as a kind of prior art of sort that allows me to then go later and say, well, here's the session commit, here's the cryptographic and witness stamp of when and how and that the thing was eventually created, even if this particular PR never gets included in my actual code base. So going back to yours for a moment, that was a long-winded way to say, we could probably do something similar right here. Now, this particular element that you're seeing here, and we see in my sort of dream-based system, now the dream-based system can operate in one of two ways. One, the way that I'm currently running, and I'll show you guys in a minute, runs using the schedule capability in Claude because it's cheap and I can't be bothered to spend my own money. But the other option you have, and which would probably work really well for what you're doing here, is we could use GitHub Actions. So GitHub Actions essentially allows you to execute similarly. Now, the drawback to GitHub Actions in the case of a lot of sort of organizational accounts is you have to pay for that. Now, the benefit to GitHub Actions in the case of our GitHub account is we've got a free account that is part of the nonprofit thing that they gave us a while back. So using our free GitHub resources means that we can do that without really any cost associated with it. Now, there is, I guess, potentially some costs associated with the LLM, but the executable cost anyway it would be nothing in this particular scenario. So that might be, and you've got a rescan repo. What's happening on the rescan here?
Well, I think the idea there is that it's just reevaluating based on any changes in the repo. So it's a static analysis, and then you update the static analysis.
Okay, that's cool. And what's the L6 and L7 represent here?
Those are the levels of OIA.
Oh, I got you. So the OIA has multiple levels that have been defined. In this case, L7, orchestration workflow, and L6
And then
would
if you
be context.
Yeah, and then if you notice, there's a badge that will indicate that you're sort of green on L7 down below. And so you could add that badge to your repo and say, okay, we're OIA level 7, whatever the hell that means. And yeah.
Yeah, we probably need to figure out what that means since it's our spec. But so this badge would render, and this badge is rendered using the markdown style badge that you get on GitHub
Absolutely,
repos kind of
yeah.
thing. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, and we could even conceivably do things like submit pull requests. Like if their repo is open, then we could say, okay, here's an improvement plan to run in your environment, or we could conceivably, as you said, since we have this kind of arbitrage of compute, we could do a whole bunch of free analysis and kind of characterization of the application.
Yeah, we also did say,
GitHub Actions.
Michael, that perhaps it's a good idea to run against multiple analysis frameworks, right? So I think you already have MetaHarness.
Yeah.
And my point was, well, if we have two, then that's really N, and somebody can contribute a harness or analysis framework so that we can provide all sorts of interesting views across projects that are submitted.
Yeah, and I think this can really become kind of a nexus for attention across the industry as people are starting to figure out like where these things fit in and how they rate against other things.
Now, I've been a big fan of the work that Adrian's been doing with Retort as well. So this is the badge right here, the great little green one.
Right, well, no, it would be. I don't know that he. No, it's down below the OAI L7 would be his badge.
But it looks like this, I think.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So is the highest number the most important?
It's the highest number the most.
Oh, I just see here that's
no. I think they're just different. I mean, they're just different tiers. That they're I mean, it's all written out right there. So L7 would be, the reason he's L7 is because the analysis sort of showed that as a point of intersection with the standard. See what I mean? So he's not necessarily rated, he's just tripping
Yeah, the
detectors.
characteristics, each of these level. It's funny to call it a level because then you think that it's in some sort of sequence. But they're just like planes of existence, if you like. So does it have a community aspect to it? Does it have an infrastructure aspect to it? Those are the sorts of things that are on those levels.
So I lose, what do my meta harness looks like it does the best, apparently. Possibly. I get 3.
Yeah, and again, I haven't gone deep on there is a methodology section at the bottom of the document. I've not gone deep and done rigorous analysis on how it's coming to these conclusions. So this is all very suspect. And I welcome any participation in making this much more confidence building. But it's a start.
Looks good. Yeah. Share
And
feedback.
if you want to check it out, yeah, so we've got this GitHub issue here. That's sort of the initiative that we're kind of working through with this page. If you want to move this page in a different direction, or you think it's misguided, or there should be some other component added to it, please contribute that here. I'm monitoring this daily, and we can start to include other ideas that people have for this. Submit a pull request.
That looks great. I think
point your cloud at it.
I think we all agree that we want, well, the things we build, most people want a little bit more visibility and feedback in those things. So this looks like a nice step towards making that, verifiable and a path to, getting your things more seen, if you will. That's pretty cool. Nice work on that. Voting, scoring templates. Okay. I'll have to take a look at that. I'm sure this could be an interesting part of what I wanted to discuss today around the Dream Machine. Maybe we could integrate some of those elements here. Before we do, is there anything anyone wants to discuss or tell us about before we jump into some vibing? No?
How
All right.
many of you are using second-tier LLM providers beyond OpenAI and Anthropic?
I'm using almost entirely second, I don't know if I would call it secondary tier, but open models. So I use the escalation approach. So my lowest level model currently is GLM 5.2. And then that escalates to DeepSeek Pro V4, I think it is. And then based on sort of the Darwin loop, it escalates either to a Sonnet 5 or the comparable 5.6, I think it's medium. And at the top of my food chain is still Fable. That's still for the types of work that I'm doing. And that escalation model creates about an 80 to 90% reduction in overall cost. Most things never escalate to the frontier models. And that sort of stepped escalation is by far the best and most cost efficient around the concepts of a Pareto frontier model approach. Now the other thing to keep in mind is sometimes I'll use a local model on like my Mac Mini or in the cloud, and then for those I'm using a series of very small, relatively shitty models, but I'm using the MicroLoRa to optimize those models in a kind of mixture. It's not really a mixture of models. It's like more like a mixture of harness and agent that then allocates to different models based on the task in which it needs to do. So it's not asking everything. It's just asking very specific things of the model and then optimizing that model to do that thing. And that approach is cheap and way cheaper.
Hey, Rev, real quick, can you share a link that shows the logic for how it knows when it needs to escalate? I'd like to better understand that.
Or maybe just demo it, if you could demo how we set that up.
Well, there's a couple different ways to demo it. So as you guys know, everything I do is open source. So let's go and let me go to my meta harness. my MetaHarness repo. All right. Let's see here. So where's my UI? Here we go. All right, so MetaHarness at this point has become the kind of central point of all the things I'm building. When you pull away the covers of my different applications, whether it's RuFlow or Review or whatever crazy thing I'm creating, like the mycelial network system, in the heart of that system is essentially a MetaHarness that wraps other systems. Now, in this case, I've got things like Codex and PyDev and Hermes and OpenClaw. I don't really care what the host is so much as the ability to modify and understand which is the optimal package for that. So in this case, you'll see that I've got different different harnesses and different structures, most of which sit inside the. I'm not sure why that's in the root folder. I gotta clean that up, but it sits inside the packages folder. So inside the packages folder, these are all essentially different and npm plus Rust based libraries. You'll see I've got different hosts that allow for that. Now, as part of that, you'll see that I've got this kind of escalation. Now, depending on what I'm trying to do, I need to evaluate those escalations. So I evaluate based on the problem in which I'm trying to solve. So, for example, this would be an evaluation harness. I should probably care to read me for this, but this would be an evaluation harness for the Human's Last Exam, HLE. And the Human's Last Exam essentially is good for problems that involve like logic and reasoning sort of intensive tasks. And this is going to allow me to sort of bench and understand those types of things. Now, for let's say I want to lower my AWS bill, which would be structurally similar to like the Human's Last Exam, but applied to sort of economics. So in this particular scenario, I'm going to use the model that basically I point at my AWS environment and say, understand what's operating within that environment, and then understand, economically speaking, how I can figure out what the most cost-efficient way to organize and operate that model would be. So in this case, I'm trying to basically make it cheap and easy to operate my cloud environment in this particular scenario. Now, to do a lot of this, what I'm doing is using a kind of benchmarking harness. So the benchmarking harness, again, is essentially running a variety of different approaches and can pick and choose which benchmark best serves the problem in which I'm trying to solve. I don't explicitly tell it which benchmark to use. There's lots of different benchmarks. There's Deep SWE, there's Draco, there's all these different benchmarks that I'm able to sort of pick and choose. Well, not me, the system. So the system is then saying, well, based on the general functionality or the problem I'm trying to solve, I can then selectively choose which of the benchmarks makes the most sense for the problem in which I'm trying to solve. And then the system is essentially allowing it to sort of kind of learn and adapt and understand. Now, what does that look like from a practical standpoint? I made a service out of that. Let's take a look at that for a moment. So Cognitum 1 dashboard. So you can build it yourself if you wanted to, but in this case, what I did is let's sign out of this. I'm going to sign in my Cognitum account. All right, you guys. Well, Cognitum 1. Here we go. All right, so in this case, I've got different services. So the Meta LLM acts as a kind of abstraction to a variety of different LLMs that I've made available. And essentially, I'm using things like Requesty and OpenRouter and local models, depending on what I'm trying to do. But what this is doing is essentially allowing you to define, the structure of things like a benchmark. So in this case, there's different benchmarks that I've made available. These are the things I do most commonly. So task quality, production readiness, and safe autonomy. So for task quality, what I'm trying to do is basically say you have one thing you need to do. And remember, when you're building agentic systems, you don't want to be broad, you want to be narrow. The more narrow the task, the better and more measurable it becomes, and the more likely that it's repeatable and deterministic in doing that task as best as it can possibly be. So in this case, I've got things like task completion, grounded output, policy violations in terms of task quality. So what would that actually mean in simple terms? Think of the ability to understand a particular patient. Now, in this particular task might be no more than like, is their heart beating normally, right? Very narrow kind of task. And I need to basically understand that when I do that task, and it doesn't necessarily even need a language model to do that task, it can do it repeatedly and consistently and always get to the same result and understand what that result means. And so this task quality is essentially allowing it to pass those gates. And the gate in this case is set, I think, at 80% or something like that. So can it do the thing repeatedly over and over again in a deterministic way? Now, production readiness in this scenario would be like, is it capable of doing that on a long horizon? Like, can I operate this thing not just once to do the sort of task quality, but will it remain viable over an extended period, days, weeks, months, kind of sort of analysis? Then we have so once we have that, we can then choose different benchmarks and different options and different structures that allow the system to continually operate on an ongoing basis. Once you have that, you've got a flywheel. Now the flywheel is similar to what I was showing you, or briefly showing you earlier, in the concepts of the sort of dream state. So a flywheel is always running, always learning, always adapting. So certain tasks, especially tasks that involve a lot of information flow back and forth, think networking, for example, or your spatial environment, things like that, where the information is constantly flowing. It can then capture that information, evaluate, evolve, create a kind of shadow or a kind of digital twin of that environment, understand what's meaningful within that environment, and then promote it. That means certain things are not meaningful. They're just dead ends for whatever reason. It's not going to result in anything it hasn't learned anything, or the thesis or hypothesis that it was trying to evolve was just not something that resulted in anything meaningful. And those are, again, dead ends. But certain things, maybe depending on the project, might be 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 100,000, but it will find those sort of optimal paths, remember those, and then create a kind of Darwinistic state, a path, trajectory, whatever you want to call it, that remembers that this was the optimal path and all those other paths were dead ends. And then it'll start that whole process again, learning, adapting, and understanding, always making that system better and more efficient in different ways. So in this scenario, it provides the ability to essentially create a kind of self-learning evolutionary loop for your systems. Now, what's important, and we jump back, because this is all basically MetaHarness. What's important here is being able to measure those things. So I think, where did I put that in scripts? Let's see here. No, where I got too much crap. I gotta clean this up again. I think I put it. I gotta lots and lots of stuff in here. I sometimes it gets a little messy. My apologies. But what, like, Poker Darwin would be a good example here. So what I needed to do is test it not just against, like, random things that are hard to understand. In this particular scenario, I said, can I train a system to learn how to play poker? And this was inspired by some of the stuff that Ofer was doing with his sort of gaming components. And ultimately, I'm learning the sort of what works and what doesn't within a kind of measured poker. There's a poker benchmark of some sort. I'm trying to see, like, can I beat the state of the art for poker related self-learning? And the answer was yes, I could, right? And this would be sort of the process that I use to learn and benchmark and optimize for playing poker game, Hold'em and other things. You can see the amount of integers. This underpins it, right? The difference between this and what I'm showing you in the Cognitum system is I created an API, a cloud-based service, and I kind of productized all the capabilities. You can kind of you can do pretty much everything that I did in the cloud, but you'd have to go and put it all together yourself. Kind of like it's like a bag of Lego building blocks versus a pre-built house or something. But all the pieces that I'm using to do that exist within this particular repo. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's so you can see there's different presets, different analysis and support resolutions and whatnot. I could probably add more stuff to it. Integrations. So, but underpins it is essentially a kind of spectrum. On one side, you've got a harness. The harness evolves, it adapts, it rewrites its own code. The model's static. Now, that's really important when you live in a world where the model is kind of secondary and kind of easily replaceable. I don't want my harness to be locked to a particular model. So by saying the harness is adaptive or dynamic and the model is static, that means I can easily drop in new models as new better frontier models come out or new lower end, sort of open source models come out. The system can basically adapt itself to the realities of whatever those models are either good at or bad at and fill in those blanks without me telling exactly where or how to find those dead spots that you get in new models. One of the challenges that I had with a lot of these sort of new models that have been coming out over the last year is every time there's a new model, I'd have to go and I'd have to redefine my prompts. And I would get the prompt perfect for my RuFlow system, and then a week later there'd be 4.6, and then there'd be 4.7, and what was happening was I would have to basically rework my entire prompt system for incremental changes in these models. This solves that problem. I don't care if those models are changing because my harness can automatically adapt to those changes without me specifically telling it how to adapt to those changes. And hopefully, does that make sense, or am I rambling?
How do
again?
you accomplish that exactly? Like, how do you bridge that?
In terms of the evolution?
Well, so it changes. How do you maintain how do you hold your ground while the things are moving underneath you? What's your kind of how are you solving for that moving target?
Well, the concept is essentially trajectories. So the trajectories define the optimal sort of the path between the request and the final result of what that request represents. So depending, well, one, if it results in a failure, which would then be picked up and then would be defined based on that concept of Darwin, that means that it's now no longer functional for whatever reason, which is in the, where do I put that? I think it's in my Darwin. Sorry, I get too much crap here. Packages. Nope. Packages, Darwin. So Darwin is the kind of core mode of that. So the Darwin component essentially makes the LLM, as they said, measurably better by evolving the operating system around it. So every time I do something new, it's kind of creating its own kind of planning and context and building and reviewing and optimizing and then creating a kind of score on whether it can do the thing it needs to do reliably based on whatever's changed. So most times the things that's changed is either the data that's being provided to it or the model that's sort of interpreting the information and the execution of what it needs to do.
Hola.
So,
Hola, padre.
sorry,
Ratio, you
guys,
got a hot mic.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm gonna mute all you guys. You can unmute if you want. All right. Yeah, so it's essentially, I don't know, I guess it says mutating the surface one at a time, test each change in a sandbox. Now, the sandbox is a really important concept here because as we've discovered over the last few weeks, sandboxes are very easy to sort of escape if not defined correctly. So I can get into the sandbox here in a minute, but no, I thought I muted you.
You did.
All right. Anyway, sorry. So sorry that threw my brain off for a moment there. So there's a sandbox, and then it keeps only what's measurably improves. So in the most simple terms, this is a JSON. The JSON defines, or if I'm using my vector, it could be a vector style database. But for most things, I don't even need that. Just a JSON that remembers the original and preferred sort of trajectory is stored. Then once that is stored, that can act as a kind of how did I do this and how did it work and why did it work? Which I think Jed was referring to earlier, like how to remember all the details of the communication with the LLM. That's where it's stored. And then it builds a kind of archive of the successful variants, the derivatives of that, and then can use that going forward. Now, in the future, I might decide that I want to switch this to a new model. Now I'm going to run that again, or it's going to run automatically depending on the structure in which I'm using, and then say, is there a measurable performance or intelligence increase now that I'm using this new model? And if the answer is no, well, there's no reason to use that model. But if the answer is yes, it'll remember what it did differently to say that this model and this harness with whatever changes I made to the harness are going to work better. So I'm not exactly, I'm only in this particular scenario, I'm only updating the harness itself, and the model itself stays static. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we've got what do we call it? I gotta find it. Sorry, I got
So what
too much.
happens if you were to put the models out of order, Ruth?
Out of order?
Instead of specifying or curating the model that waterfalls down or fails up to a more capable model, what happens if you were to simply let the models loose, at least initially chaotically, and let them self-organize?
That's viable but expensive. And what I'm trying to
Only in the
do is
beginning.
I'm trying to use the cheapest model at the most capable intelligence for it, right? So I'm failing up. Now that kind of chaos approach would be way more expensive, and I'm trying to save a buck. Now, if money doesn't matter, then I suppose you could do that in a parallel fashion and basically say, spin up 1,000 variants concurrently and tell me of the 1,000 which one is the best. But you're going to spend 1,000 times more than you need to get to that answer. My approach says only
variant.
fail up if it isn't capable of answering the question.
Well, as a quick example, how do you compare the difference between Minimax 2.7 or whatever the second latest version is versus the GLM 5.1? Most benchmarks put them roughly peers. Do you then, in this fail up, decide one over the other, or is there some other way to re-rank them?
Yeah, so keep in mind those benchmarks are completely useless for what I'm doing. So when you see like the latest benchmarks from Grok that came out today, is it dramatically better? No, it wasn't. What they did was they created a harness optimized for the benchmarks in which they wanted to sort of be better at, which doesn't generally relate to the things that I'm doing. Like just because your model is really good at a certain benchmark doesn't mean it's practically good at the things that I needed to do. So I disregard that completely. And I'm basically saying, can it solve the problems that I'm giving you to solve, irrespective of whatever random benchmarks that the guys at Grok came out with and said it makes them the best. So I'm not looking for
I guess
broad
my point
intelligence.
is the benchmark, Rav. It's how do you distinguish in the fail up context two otherwise similarly capable models?
I test and benchmark each incremental step. So as
So
it
they
fails
can
up,
re-rank, or if
they
I don't
re-rank.
know.
Yeah, I think re-rank would probably be a good way to think about it. They can sort of test, and I'm letting this thing loose on essentially requesty and open router. So I'm letting it go and figure out and find out of all the various models available, which one solves the problem the best. I'm not specifically saying that you have to use GLM 5.2 versus 5.1. I'm letting the system figure out the 5.2 was the better option. It
We've got
probably did.
questions from Rohan and Ofer.
Yeah. Rohan?
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to find the unmute button. One of my questions is I tried the open source harness, and my environment was VS Code and Copilot. I know it's not the most friendly environment for your harness to be played on, but I felt like I couldn't leverage most of the capabilities that the harness offers, but given that, do you have any suggestions or
I'm not sure. Well, so I use VS Code as well.
okay,
Are you on Mac, Windows, Linux? What's your operating
Windows,
environment? So
Windows.
when I operate, as you can see, I'm running right now on Windows. I've obviously got all the various environments. I built this and tested it on Windows. Sounds like
Okay.
you might not have. I don't know. What
I
specifically? What was the
sorry.
error?
So I only have Copilot access to Copilot right now, and that was the limitation. So is
Oh,
Copilot, I felt like with Copilot, like a lot of the features, like a lot of the functionality, the awesome things that this offers is not accessible. Like first,
I do have a.
yeah, go ahead.
I do have a Copilot. The weird thing about the Copilot integration, as soon as I did the Copilot, they came out and started charging based on usage, which kind of sucked.
Yes.
But when I originally did the Copilot integration, which is specifically for what you just described, it was
Right.
kind of an unlimited usage, which was amazing.
Uh-huh.
You have to use the Copilot harness.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I did. Okay, let me try again. I'm gonna go into it and give you some feedback and maybe can, yeah, see how it goes.
Yeah, so Windows is always kind of a tricky environment because there's a lot of variables in terms of what's installed and access and depending if you're using PowerShell or command console and blah blah blah. If you're looking to push the state of the art, you're not going to use Windows. It's just
Yeah,
not
okay.
it's just not optimal. But if you do want to continue to use Windows and you don't want to spend a lot of money, what you want to
Right.
do is you want to use this. So what this does, this creates a specific hypervisor that operates
Okay.
independently of Windows itself. So what this is it's kind of like if you're familiar with QEMU. It's not QEMU, but that's the closest kind of analogy I have for it. It
Mm-hmm.
basically creates a completely quarantined operating environment that you can run adjacent to Windows. Now,
Got it.
hypothetically, you could run this on bare metal with no Windows or Linux or anything involved. And what sits inside of this is a kernel. So the kernel, and this is the ultimate sandbox in essence. And it allows you to control all elements of the operating environment from the kernel
Uh-huh.
all the way up. So if you want to sort of figure out how to run your own little models, separately from Windows, this is where I would start. So you can define your capabilities and other various parts. And it uses the RVF format that I like for sort of creating a kind of deterministic packaging that goes to other locations, that kind of thing.
Awesome. I'll give this a try. And one last thing, I heard have you heard? I saw some update from Mark Zuckerberg about on-device language models. Have you heard about that or?
Yeah, I've been playing with those as well. The
Okay.
stuff I've got sort of mixed feelings about Mark Zuckerberg and his
Yeah.
manifesto. Like,
Yeah.
so you want me to rant on this? Is that what you're
No,
setting me up for?
no. We
Because
can do
I will.
this. We can do this after your demo and stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about it.
Yeah, from a high level, remember, like we're reaching a point where the language models are almost secondary, in my opinion, to the harness, right? And
Mm-hmm.
when you look at things like I was about to show you guys in the where was it? Where I think I lost it again. The EFT option here. Where did I put that? EFT. So if you think of the spectrum of what we're building on, I spent a lot of time optimizing the harness, but there are a lot of reasons why you want to optimize the model, specifically when it comes to on-device language models, things that run in your browser, things that run in a limited amount of resources. And for a lot of things, you don't need a monolithic model, and you can actually quite easily separate the bits and pieces of these trillion parameter models and then only use the parts of the sort of mixture of experts that you need for the particular problem in which you're trying to solve. And then you can essentially modify those experts to the particulars of what you're trying to solve. So if you think of the way I showed you previous as sort of the left-hand side of the spectrum, this would be the far right. What this does is basically allows you to incrementally modify the actual expert or model and then test whether those incremental updates to those models result in anything better, more efficient, more practical to solve that problem. So that could be, for example, I need to do bug fixes and I need my model to understand my particular code base, but I don't care about anyone else's code base. Anyone that's ever tried using Go on certain like coding models will see that it kind of sucks on most open models. You can fix that kind of problem by basically creating an expert in Go specifically for your model. This would train that expert to be optimized for the Go programming language as an expert. Now, taking that further, I don't know why I put it in the root folder. I got to clean that up. For the Kimi K3 was particularly well suited for this. So what my Kimi K3 harness did is basically says, I can't run Kimi K3 because it's crazy big, right? It's like 2.7 trillion parameters. But what I could do is I found a C library that essentially allowed me to take the various parts of the Kimi K3 model and separate each one of those and then optimize for it. So I could take the best bits of Kimi K3, optimize them, and then run them locally on my CPU. Now I'm taking a 2.3 or 2.78 trillion parameter model and saying I only need a million or 100 million parameter expert out of that model. And then I can review, architect, and optimize for the particulars of that model. And that's what this particular approach is doing. Now I've got different benchmarking components that I built to sort of prove it. I've got different structures here that allows me to basically recreate the concepts of Kimi K3 in Rust versus I think the original example I found was in C. Not a big fan of C, so I ported it to Rust. But this, in the most simple terms, allows me to take the bits and pieces from Kimi K3 and run it on like my phone. So the fact that Mark Zuckerberg is an insane, detriment to society, conceptually, I agree with what he's saying. I just don't agree in the way that he's applying it to sort of control children's minds and other crazy shit that Mark Zuckerberg does.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot here.
I know.
But this has become kind of my my language and harness sort of I don't know, lab of sorts. And if you dig through this, you'll find all kinds of crazy stuff that I'm doing. And router calibrations. So like, how do you allocate to the right mixture of agents and harnesses and going from A to B to C and that sort of thing. And you can see that I'm measuring all of it, and different environments, costs. Now, the most recent update I did last week, which might be interesting for you guys, is where was it? There's the turn credit. Turn credit is a concept that just came out. So with turn, I'm probably gonna do a terrible job at explaining turn credits, but this is a concept that's like new as of like, when did I do this? 3 days ago? Yeah, so this is the latest thing that was released on the Agent OP SD. But it's a success failure score that says nothing about the actions and and converts per turn evidence into recursively updated belief in the eventual success and turns marginal beliefs into bounded per turn weights that can modulate. So what does that mean in simple terms? It means that it provides the ability for agents to communicate with each other the potential of a particular trajectory. So it's inferring what will likely be the optimal path to get to the optimal solution, where a lot of what I was showing you before was deterministic. I measured it, and out of all the different ways that I've measured, Flye and Darwin and all these crazy things, and then I said it's deterministically repeatable. Now, for a lot of things, I don't want to spend the money, time, or effort to have determinism, especially for things that are sort of more research oriented, linguistic, or things that are sort of more discoverable. Like I want to infer the most likely scenario. What this does is provides me the ability to sort of, for lack of a better term, infer or guess what the best likely scenario is. It's pretty cool. I'm still trying to exactly figure out how to use it efficiently. What else we got here? Radio, passive aware swarm bus for agent pods. When you look at what the agents that we're doing that was scaped both Anthropic and OpenAI, what they're doing is they're creating a kind of internal messaging system that allows them to communicate effectively between each other. So what this does is essentially provides a kind of asynchronous messaging system that allows the agents to self-organize and create a kind of task execution without any defined boundaries. Now, the boundaries are obviously defined within the actual sandbox, but what this is essentially doing is giving it a inherent sense of self, and that allows it to organize. I don't know, maybe we'll call it a swarm, but it's a kind of comms-based swarm. It's all kinds of crazy shit combined together. Kind of a fun little project to look at. This I did this 5 days ago as well. So the paper, this is based on another paper, and I'm just finding these interesting papers. Now, the way I'm finding these interesting papers, and this one came out July 30th, so these are all pretty cutting edge, things, is I'm using a dream cycle. So now we get the dream cycle. So every night, my system dreams. It dreams about what it needs to do and how it needs to sort of improve itself to be the best possible version of itself. Let me just check my calendar quick and make sure I don't have any conflicts. It's top of the hour. Sorry, guys. I hope this is valuable or useful. Otherwise, I'm just rambling. All right, Dream Machine.
Very valuable.
So
Yeah, I just want to point out, Rev, like this part that you're saying with the Kimi K3 harness, like it's blowing my mind. I'm going to probably spend the entire rest of the day with it.
it's cool, right? It's separating a almost 3 trillion parameter model into modular composable sub expert models that I can then sort of assemble and use without a GPU.
Not only that, but you can forego spending $600,000 on an 8x B300 system and still get results that you need. At least that's what we try to use it for.
Anyone that tells you you need a GPU is doing it wrong. Most things these days can be separated into logical components, and the GPU may accelerate those sort of subcomponents. But if you're just one guy doing some stuff, I'm doing this all on a CPU for the most part. Now, I do use GPUs where needed for certain things. But so the dream. So I was showing you earlier this kind of, oh, sorry, you have a question?
What's the resulting parameter count for these, for lack of a better term, derived experts?
It depends. Generally, they're in the 1 to 10 million parameter sort of. Anything above about 10 million parameters needs a GPU. So I'm generally trying to stay under 10 million, 10 million or so. You can get away with, probably a 500,000, a 500 million parameter model. But at that point, there's no point. You can separate that into 500 million parameter models or whatever. So I'm just trying to keep it small because there's that sort of exponential curve you get when on large parameter models, right? The difference between a 10 million parameter model and a 100 million parameter model isn't 10x, it's like 1,000x, right? It's that sort of vector curve that you see. So I'm trying to keep it low and small and heavily quantized. So I'm using TurboVec and a bunch of other sort of quantization tricks to get that model small and quantized as best I can. Then I use the flywheel and the Darwin to measure and benchmark and optimize until I've got a hyper optimized sort of mini little expert model of some sort that I string together with the router. All right, back to the dream for a moment. So you see here every night it dreams and it's creating and it's learning and it's optimizing. And you can go to my models and you can see what that looks like, and it relates to what it's done in the past. Gives it flywheel. This one was brand new. It looks like. What's the date on that one? Let's go back to it. Yeah, so this is my most. So I've just updated my dream system. So this is the updated version that I'm rolling out today. So you can see in this case, it was looking at benchmarking memory, apparently, given a memory QA workload of fact storage, recall. This is basically trying to measure like recall in a vectors. It looks like. Here's the Darwin. These are the different approaches it took, and see that's improving or getting better. Here's the evidence. This is making sure it's not doing reward hacking, which has been a problem with the models recently. So it's just making sure that it's staying on point. It uses the weight ETF. Again, I didn't give it any guidance to how to do that, and I'll show you the prompt here in a minute. So every night at basically 3 or whatever, 6, I guess midnight, an isolated cloud agent wakes with no memory of its own past. So this was my problem. So my original dreams were sort of interconnecting to previous MDs, but then I realized that it had sort of short-term memory issues. And then it read what Rooflow already learned without it, and picks a falsifiable question and tries to answer it with a real benchmark of an opinion before going back to sleep and having made tomorrow's search a little bit smaller. So it's learning and adapting. It remembers everything, though it forgets everything else. So each run is a fresh cloud checkout, no process, no session, no memory of yesterday survives, except one file it reads before touching everything else. It creates a ledger. Now, I don't, because I'm using GitHub for most of this stuff, an MD is more than adequate. You could use a JSON as well, or other various, forms of storage, but generally speaking, the simplest solution is the best solution when it comes to Agentix. So this creates a sort of durable spine, a kind of graph that connects everything you've done to everything that needs to be done. And the vast majority of things don't matter. So I'm not trying to stuff everything I've ever done, because I don't need everything I've ever done. I only need to stuff the things that matters. So if the last 14 nights merge nothing, tonight is told to stop writing essays and try something small enough to actually get reviewed. It's learning the things that are meaningful to not just the system, but to me, the organizer and director of the system itself. So you noticed earlier I mentioned that sometimes I like things that have a B grade. Now that means that it's going to learn that, oh, Rube actually has a preference towards things that relates to the thing that he committed and published last night. It's going to learn that rather than just blindly saying that it's sort of rubric is always the same. The research is important. Now, I'm always looking to stay ahead of the curve, and I guess I'm a patent troll in a weird way. I'm looking at the most cutting edge research, and then I'm trying to infer, build, and create novel new discoveries based on things that combine those things into new packaged ways. So a deep researcher, then 4 scan agents span out in parallel. Now I can do more. 4 was good enough. And this is self-evolving loop. So if it needs more resources, it'll just figure it out. And then it looks at sort of the different routing, context window budget policies, and other things. Every claim behind them is graded before it's allowed to matter. Can I produce it? Like, is it a paper that actually has enough detail for me to actually reproduce it, which is important. And to be honest, sometimes I like things that don't even have reproducibility, because then I can try to be first. Is there a public benchmark? Most benchmarks for most papers at this point are self-claimed benchmarks anyway. So then the question becomes, is it a bullshit benchmark that I can't match? And you'd be surprised, most of these papers are just BS that they lucked into, which is a common problem here. So then the question is, can I reproduce it? So vendor claims, cross-checked against secondary source. And what we're seeing, especially out of places like China right now, is a kind of research paper mill. They're just cranking out crap and not really doing a lot of work to actually validate it. And so the system is basically saying, can we actually validate it? Is it actually something that's legitimate? And if the answer is no, I'm just going to keep going and moving on to the next thing. All right, so then the hypothesis, frozen before anyone knows the answer. The winning direction gets written down as something that can be wrong on purpose before evaluation starts, and it cannot be edited once the results come in. It's a hypothesis. It's the basis of scientific exploration. It means that you're starting with that sort of predetermined hypothesis that you're either going to prove or disprove. And if I can't prove it, then I'm going to move on to the next thing. So a candidate's change is applied, and the primary metric improves versus the baseline. Can I get better than what they've stated? And oftentimes the answer is no, I can't, because they either made it up or they did it in a way that just isn't reproducible. But for certain ones, I can actually better it, and then I can learn based on what made it better. When I say I should probably say the AI. If it fails, the failure is the result. Sometimes the failure is actually more important than the success. And to be honest, most things fail more than they succeed. So having failure as the kind of the key flywheel as the process, why did it fail? Why, and learning that, okay, this is the failure model for this particular thing. I'm going to use that going forward, so I don't bother with things I know are going to likely result in a kind of dead end. It's so this idea that's a constellation prize is almost like I'm seeking failure to get to success or something. The more I fail, the more likely I am to succeed, because I'm finding that needle in the haystack. The things that fail are going to fail more frequently. I like this one, not prose, a diff. If finding is harness shape, routing, model, selection, topology, memory, policy, a harness genome parameter, it becomes actual file edit that night. Now, I'm always trying to create these things as small as possible. What I don't want are monoliths, back to why I like Rust. So everything I do is trying to do it in the least amount of code possible. Like bragging about 60 million lines of code is more like me saying I could have done it in 600 million lines of code, but I managed to do it in 60 million lines of code. So the least amount of code possible is always going to be the best possible result for what I'm trying to do. So the system strives to try to do it less is more kind of approach. Baseline first, same corpus, same results. So I'm always trying to prove that whatever the discovery was made, I can make the same discovery. Then I can understand why and how they made that discovery, so I can improve, build, adapt based on that discovery. So the parent is measured before the candidate ever runs, task successes, and so on and so forth. Then the candidate runs the same exact evaluation. The receipt is preserved verbatim. That means I've created a cryptographic deterministic structure using my RBF format that says this is the starting point that is reproducible and exactly the process in which I was able, again, shouldn't use the word the AI was able to create that thing, and I can independently verify it. And if I send it to someone else, keep in mind the whole world's saying that I'm like the slop generator and blah blah blah. So I've got a higher sort of threshold to prove the things I do, because people just assume that it's just garbage. So I need to be able to prove that the things I did aren't just working for me, but can be working for someone other than me in a repeatable style. Otherwise, I'm the slop master, and that doesn't work for me. The one who built it doesn't get to grade it. An independent critic before Darwin ever runs is handed the result and told to try to break it. This is my sort of red-blue agent. I'm always trying to sort of say, is it faked? And you guys have followed me long enough, you know that for the first little while, just because the AI told me it was real doesn't mean it was real. So what this is trying to do is basically act as the kind of Reddit style troll saying that this guy is totally full of it, and you know, how can we make this thing not work, or sort of unvalidated, or whatever the right term is. So this is basically the adversarial structure, and this is all running every night across my entire code base. 3 generations, a fitness function frozen in advance. Only after basic evaluation does Darwin get a small fence budget to explore around winning candidate. I'm cheap. I don't want to spend more than I have to spend. So wherever possible, I'm trying to use, you know, code-based deterministic systems that don't require an LLM. The LLM only needs to be invoked when there's some form of reasoning or linguistic sort of interpretation of that information. That makes it cheap, and it makes it much more efficient. But at a certain point, I need the system to be smart enough to say, well, I actually do need a reasoning model for whatever reason. Now you've got a budget to go work within to do that. Now, the benefit to using Claude is that budget is cheap, right? Because I'm using a max account in this particular scenario, so I don't need to really worry about the cost so much. But if I was working in the context of, let's say, an enterprise, where I can't use a the max account because they're secretly training all their systems on my data, then this would become really important, because this could become very, very expensive. This relates back to that concepts of the evolutionary sort of failing up approach that what I described. It fails up, it creates generations, and it sort of creates a kind of measurement of each of those sort of failed step up approaches. All right, the durable memory this all writes into. Now, the most important thing as part of the dream cycle, at least in my opinion, is the idea of the dream cycle as remembering it. So much like a human, when a human dreams, it takes that information, it basically says, what's important? What do I need to remember? And then it kind of gets rid of all the other sort of superfluous information that sits in your brain. I generally remember the day I got married, but I kind of vaguely remember the bus ride I took with my friends because we were a little bit drunk on the bus ride there, and so on and so forth. But I do remember being on the bus, but I can't tell you who the bus driver's name was. Those sorts of things. So this is taking the information that's important and removing the information that is not, and remembers those in the form of observation, measurement, inference, hypothesis, decision, and rejection. For my system, those are the things that are most meaningful. I remember the things that are meaningful and forget the things that don't matter. It's light, it's ephemeral, and repeatable. Now back to the idea of the slop master. I need to be able to prove this to others. So that's where the witness stamp comes back in. Anyone can check it was rewritten after the fact. Did I fake it? Is it actually real? Can someone other than me recreate the thing that I did? Or is it just a broad hallucination of something that thinks it should work, but doesn't actually work for anyone other than me, which is a problem I repeatedly ran into. And so this provides that kind of cryptographic stamp in the form of an RBF format file. All right, we're almost done here. You guys are getting the crash course here in dreaming. I'm going to share. I'll share you the prompt here in a minute that allows you to do this as well. The evaluation is not permission. This is the one rule. Everything upstream exists to protect. A dream cycle can gather every kind of evidence there is and is still not allowed to act on its own conclusion. It never merges. I'm its master. It never self-promotes a flywheel candidate. It needs to prove it. Never weakens a test or benchmark to get a better number. This is particularly problematic. There's a tendency for these models to take the path of least resistance to get to the benchmark answer. And when you look at a lot of the research reports that are coming out of, particularly in China, it's cheating to get the answer. A cheat to get to the best answer isn't the answer. It's a cheat, and it's not repeatable. It's just garbage. So what this is saying is I need to create a structure that is not basically taking the path of least resistance. Every night makes tomorrow's search space smaller. So not by shipping more pull requests, by retaining precisely why the last one won, why the one before that lost, and exactly what still needs to be measured before anyone can be sure either way. The agent that ran tonight won't remember any of this tomorrow morning. The ledger will. I mean, this was something Jed mentioned briefly. I don't need to remember everything. I shouldn't have to remember everything. I only need to remember the things that are meaningful. And that's a particularly important part of this process. And again, if you want to see it in action, you can just go to my, RuFlow is particularly good for this. See like my different dreams. This was yesterday's, and you can see the different dream cycles and what it's doing and so on. And now let's hop into Claude for a moment. And we're in code. We're going to go to routines. And you can see I've got a few routines here, nightly dream cycle. Now, I also run dream cycles as on GCP in the cloud, but I did this because this is the cheapest way to do it. Then that's why I wanted to set this up for you. So I've got a couple. So this is a system verification, but I'm going to start with the dream cycle. So the dream cycle here, you can see it running. It runs. It's been running for months. Now I can go here and I can just randomly choose, January 7th. I can see whatever it learned on that day. But what's more important for you is, let's go back to routines, is how I actually did it. And that's right here. So you can see I run it at 2 a.m. Eastern. Now 2 a.m. Eastern gets you the best performance. There's generally not a lot of, it doesn't usually go down. I'm using Sonnet 5. I don't need it to overthink. Fable generally is more than I need, but the system can escalate. Now, because I'm using the RuFlow repo, it's capable of escalating to different models. I've got integrations with some of my my Open Router, which is using my ENVs. So we go here. This is the entire repo. I'm going to copy this for you guys. Let's go to my gist. Dream Loop Machine. Here it is. This is the tutorial. I'm going to edit this quickly for you. I have this. Well, I'm going to call this the Claude prompt MD. I want this to be second, so let's add an X in front of that. And we're going to update the gist. All you need to do if you want to use my dream cycle is point it at this gist.
Hey, Rube, I think it didn't copy the entire prompt there. I think it just copied the portion that was on your screen. You may have to.
It looks like it did. Yeah, it did.
Oh, cool.
Oh, ye of little faith.
That was
No,
fast.
it's
Awesome.
yeah,
Yep.
I'm too fast. Yeah. Who's working faster, me or the AI? Here's the this all you really need to do is point Claude at this and say something like set up a nightly schedule. I'm gonna schedule at 2 a.m. to do something amazing, something like that, and that's all you need. Now, the other thing, sometimes as you can see here, I create artifacts that'll explain it to me. When you see these artifacts that I'm creating, by the way, the trick to making it really look cool like this, like let's go to my Rucelium one.
I guess the gist isn't published.
It isn't? Oh, let's go back to that for a second.
It is published. I can see it.
Yeah, I can see it as
Yeah,
well.
it's public. Yeah, it's published. Looks like it's published.
Scroll to the bottom of the page.
Yeah, it looks like it's published to me.
Yeah,
It's super long and you know it works. Basically, you're just copying this or just point it at it. I won't go through all of it, but you get everything I've just described to you today.
So roof is
covered.
Is there a dependency that we have to have RooFlow installed, and then this works on top of RooFlow, or this?
Well,
this
no. Well, if you look at the requirements here, so the RooFlow Dream Cycle, this is optimized for RooFlow, but no,
Yep.
you could probably modify it. But you'll notice here that it's telling it to use Darwin, it's telling it to use my tools. You know, there's NP, is it MPX? So it's using my stuff.
Yep. And you know, and a couple more questions. So RooFlow at this point, do you really need Claude Code to or Codex or anything to run RooFlow?
No.
Yeah.
No, you don't. It's I only reason I'm using it is because it's cheap.
Yeah,
Right, the max.
I use OpenCode with local models and RooFlow daily. It works really well.
But so you need
Yeah,
you do need Claude Code. You don't need the Claude models, but you need Claude Code, and then
No,
install. You don't even need Claude Code at all.
No Claude Code.
If you want to use your
I don't-
Max plan, you have to use Claude Code or one of the Claude clients. Otherwise, they charge you per API call.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, but by the way, I'm using that escalation approach. I'm telling you, if you want to use a cheap local model and run it on your Mac Mini, it won't cost you a thing. This will work just fine on your Mac Mini. Now you're not going to use the monolith. Remember, especially on a Mac Mini because you're memory constrained. But what you can do is use the sort of K3 separated model components I was telling you about, and that'll work amazingly well on a Mac Mini. And then the system, you're basically saying step one most likely would be to like optimize your Mac Mini for performance. And for that, generally, I would probably start with a Frontier model, get the thing optimized. But once you kind of set it free, no, it doesn't need a Frontier model at that point. You only need the Frontier model for the initial sort of setup and optimization of the Mac Mini.
Do you have somewhere where you talk about what you're doing with K3, like how you're extracting intelligence from that larger model to do things? Is there a gist or something?
It's right here. Yeah, it's right here. This is what you want. Yeah, so this is the K3, and you can use this for other models too. I just did it because there was that it was easy and it was the kind of top of the food chain. But it works great. This will run.
Awesome.
This will not only run on a Mac Mini. I get this thing running on a Pi 5.
Whoa.
Yeah, no, it's the Pi 5. I had I got it working on both the sort of default Pi 5, but also on I had a hat, the AI Halo hat or whatever they call it. Yeah, it works
I
great.
think you got a hot mic there.
Last thing I want to show you guys, where was it? I got sidetracked for a moment. Oh, Rucelium. Okay, last thing I want to show you guys. This was my Rucelium thing I was doing with the guys at Cisco. They're as crazy as I am apparently. So they called their system Mycelium. It wasn't intended to be a fungal network, But after I had a chat with them, like, we should actually create a fungal network. And now what I'm not getting into the details of the fungal network. What I want to show you is this idea of a scrolly teller poly parallax. So to get this style of design, what you can do is you can tell the system to basically use a scrolly. I'm gonna type this out for you. Scrolly teller parallax design with a Three.js inspired 3D background. That's it. And so what this did is it did the. I obviously built my crazy, mycelial networking component, which totally worked, which is even crazier. But it also visually created in a way that was very nice and pretty. You see how it changes as I scroll? I'm just scrolling down. It's visualizing it. So basically, and that's the same thing I did for that nightly one I was showing you here a minute ago. It's kind of cool, right? This is a single HTML file, by the way, that you can run offline. You just view the source, copy the image or the HTML, and you can send it, and it'll work. And it's mobile friendly. So if I want to do mobile version, look, it works fine mobile. Oops.
Yeah, artifacts are cool. I think they're better than ChatGPT sites. I have trouble sharing ChatGPT sites.
Oh no, the ChatGPT sites are spectacular. You can do way more with that. Here, let me show you one.
It requires other people to log in to see them into their ChatGPT accounts.
You can share them. Let me show you. Let me show you one that I did. This is what I share for people that need to use. You share.
Yeah, I use this. I use this in the. If you saw the workshop creator that I created for you?
Look.
Yeah.
It's animated.
Yeah.
It looks spectacular.
So do you prefer one ChatGPT sites versus the Claude artifacts?
Depending on how complicated you need to be, if you're looking for like a complex dashboard like this, I'm going to use sites or something like that. This is way more in depth. Now all I need to do for people who are designing, style, things that I want to present, I just point Claude at this and say use this design style. Open certificate. Like, I don't know. I think it looks great.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Right.
Rufus, is this design this thing public? Oh, it's there. Yeah. Okay, fine.
Yeah, it's public. Here, I'll pop it in here for you guys.
Yeah, I don't know why I've only done one ChatGPT site, but I had trouble sharing it. Is there some trick to sharing it?
I don't know. Does that link work for you guys?
It does. Yeah. I gotta go back and look at it.
Mark, I'm famous for works for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's my ongoing problem in life. Now, whether it works for anyone other than me is the $1,000,000 question.
And how are you? And so, for example, some of the Cognitum presentations, that particular style format of the presentations, like what Nick, you, Rob have used, is there a particular similar template?
Network Cognitum here. Let's see. Yeah, so let's say I'm doing a pitch.
Mm-hmm.
I just go and I basically pointed at it and said, remember when you spend days creating PowerPoints? Those days are over. And it looks perfect, right? Same design style.
It's beautiful, and HTML is so much better than PowerPoint. I've completely stopped doing slides. Just do slides in HTML if you want to present via slides.
Yeah, this is something someone else sent me. What else we got here? Veil, Wi-Fi sense. Oh, this is a crazy thing I built. I built so much shit I can't even keep track of it all. So you know how everyone's like terrified by RuView because it basically allows for passive monitoring of your most intimate details, and I get why people would be concerned about that. So I'm like, all right, what you ever watch Harry Potter where the guy puts on that cloak and he's invisible to everyone? So I'm like, could I create a invisibility cloak using the sort of antithesis of RuView? The answer is yes, I could. So what this does is this allows you to create basically a path. And now keep in mind, Wi-Fi signal jamming is illegal. So I could obviously do signal jamming, but I go to jail. So I would do badly in jail. So I needed to figure out a way to do this in a way that would avoid me, spending time in a low security prison somewhere. So what I did here is I created a system that allows you to basically sort of not jam's the wrong word because that's illegal, but allows you to create a system that can quietly scramble your RF signature. So what this basically does is allows you to have like a little device, even on your phone potentially, that basically is scrambling your RF signature and then allows you to kind of be invisible to the environment. So, and this I open source this because I had to. I'm sure Chris and team probably didn't want me to, but this is available now. You can go and you can install it. And by the way, while I'm on the topic, the new IEEE specification for that's coming out next year that will actually make all the RuView stuff commonly available and all the Wi-Fi stuff has no mechanism to provide a kind of privacy shield. It's just open. So that means in a year from now, there's going to be 100 million devices made public. Every single Wi-Fi device that supports Wi-Fi 8 will be able to secretly monitor anyone anywhere without any kind of mechanism to say I don't want to be secretly monitored. This solves that problem. So you can play with the different settings, and this is an artifact. Run it, and this is all built on the code base. Pretty cool. So if you're interested, here's a white version. Now this is the Wi-Fi Veil project. I haven't really announced it. I should probably do that. Wi-Fi Veil.
Wow, Ruve, you've all of a sudden become a absolute UI master.
What would my question is, what would Stu do? He's too busy enjoying himself in Scotland, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the code base. But yeah, if you go here, you can see that you can link to it. Here, I'll send you guys that as well.
Hey, Ruve, I just wanted to let everyone else know to fork RuFlow for the Dreamtime prompt to work. So make sure you do it that way because it won't work. It'll try and write to RuFlow, which you don't own. So you need to fork the repo first.
Oh, you don't need to do that. You can just install RuFlow and a new repo. I do it all the time. I don't fork it. So like for example, if like when you go to change my GitHub remote, I'm not sure what that means, but anyway, yeah. So if you want to go and use it, just tell it to install the packages. You don't need it's overkill to fork it.
Okay.
You can see it like on root on RuView and RuVector, for example.
And
Thanks,
did you create a gist for that? I might have missed the link to the gist of that prompt.
Yeah. Oh, I see what Agentic's saying. Yeah, it's in my gist. So just go to gist. RuveNet. It should be the latest one. I did it just for you guys today. Dream Machine. It was either that or that Dreamweaver song, but I went with Dream Machine.
It's better. So you're saying that we need to install the RuFlow packages into the repo before this will work?
Well, no, you don't. You could probably just Claude's smart enough at this point to just kind of be influenced by how I'm doing it. if you want it to actually use the self-learning loops and the flywheels and the ledgers and all that stuff, then yeah, you're gonna want to use my tools. I've already built it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to go through all the effort. And this was not a light. You can see the meta harness structure is a lot. Yeah, it's your call.
Yeah, no,
I
I
would-
would rather get it working the entire right way that you're doing and be able to use all the features. But that's the trick to it is you can't, it's not just installing RuFlow, it's you have to install the RuFlow packages.
Yeah, change.
up
So
from
this line here, that's you. This is meant to be your repo,
Yep.
right? So you're going to change this to whatever repo you want that to run in. This is not a requirement. This is the thing in which it needs to run against. So you're gonna first thing you do, change this. Now what you could do is just click raw here, select all, go into whatever your preferred. Now remember, you're probably going to want to use something like Work to do this. So let's just go to ChatGPT, for example. Now I'm in Work. I'm going to paste this in here, and I'm going to say, create me a dream machine for the my RuveNet / Wi-Fi Veil system. That's it. Now I get that Dreamweaver song in my head. But that's really all you're doing. And you can do that in Claude, whatever. They all basically work the same.
So what you did is you copied the entire gist. That was what
Just
that
no,
was.
I just copied the prompt.
The prompt and the gist. Yeah.
Now I could have just done the same thing by just pointing it at this URL. Same difference. This way it's more explicit.
I ran an experiment yesterday. I was telling my Claude to look at, I did not have that gist, right? And I was like, I want to build a dream machine. So look at the trail that in your PRs and ask Claude to reverse engineer it. So it came up with a good plan, right? How to do it. And now that you shared what you did, I asked Claude to compare what he thought should be the reverse engineering of it and the actual instruction that you gave. So Claude scored itself at 8 out of 10. It said that most of the things are like it was able to figure out simply from the output of how to correct it. And then it mentioned that I guess the link I gave it is a little older one. And it says it found like 3 different fixes that in the gist that you shared are now being fixed. And so kind of it came to a similar conclusion. So reverse engineering with Claude was very successful. I didn't think it's going to be that good.
Keep in mind all the dream dream machine stuff that I've done are ADRs in the RuFlow repo. So every decision I made early on to make that dream machine, which I didn't call a dream machine until this morning, it could have been discovered and found by just digging through the docs ADR folder. And that's why I use ADRs. I use it to help others reverse engineer the things I'm building. I'm explicitly trying to get you to reverse engineer my stuff.
It worked well. Thank you.
Yeah, and by the way, those 3 updates I made this morning in preparation for this call.
Nice.
Because I want to show up and show off the Jed here and make sure that he sees the latest stuff that I've got to. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, that's me missing a week, and I've only given you I haven't shown you all the updates to RuView, all the other crazy stuff I've built. That's just a small sampling of the last 2 weeks. There's another 10 different projects. Just as an FYI, I also have an auto update to my RuveNet repo here, and I did. So there's a major one that happens around the 2nd week of. I should probably change my prompt programming now that my anyway Reddit's gone. But so I've got updates. Target now the part that's important here. You can see I guess I maxed out in June, but whatever. Here are my August updates. Rufield, I did a major update to Roof Vector. I've got the RF and home core expansion. So if you're using, things like your Alexas and whatnot, yeah, I showed you the Wi-Fi Veil. I've got a really cool new RV Forge, which allows you to do a kind of distribution of those RVM style formats. I've got a RV QR system, which is kind of cool. The RV actually, this is actually pretty neat. So what this does is, if you're familiar with the concepts of a QR system, it delivers a single bit of text. I'm like, what if I could deliver a stream of a RVM format that you could run kind of like Mission Impossible, and then it disappears. So this can actually deliver a complex, large format file, could be gigabytes in size, and it uses a combination of visual streaming information and audible information. And then once it's delivered, it can go away, kind of like Mission Impossible when you get the little message and it'll self-destruct.
How
It can
big is that
self-destruct.
image, Roof? Because a gigabyte at that QR code density is a long time holding your phone.
Yeah, you can switch to auto to the subsonic frequency. I figured that holding your phone for 10 minutes was a bit much. So what this can do is act as the initial handshake, and then if you want to switch to different formats, you can choose different approaches to how it gets delivered. You can choose nothing, you can use radio links, you can use RF, you can use subsonic frequencies if you want. This could literally be embedded in the background noise of the RF in the environment which it's in, which would be indistinguishable. So if you want to do like a secret deliverable, let's say in like Mission Impossible style, you are both meeting at a I don't know, Union Square in New York. And as long as you're within the RF range or the audible range or whatever the handshake discovers, you can basically send that package to the other person. They receive it, and then it sort of secretly disappears. You never even have to see that person in order to get that package. It's literally like from Mission Impossible.
When I benchmarked the camera only implementation, I could only get to 200 kilobits per second using, how old is this laptop? Maybe an 8-year-old laptop and a Pixel 6. And the Pixel 6 got exceptionally hot.
Yeah, I solved that problem.
Decoding
so you
all
don't you don't need the visual. You literally only need the visual for the initial. You don't even need the visual, to be honest. Like, you could use the ultrasonic and have this, completely audible or RF related. And it doesn't even need to be decent RF. It could be like Bluetooth light.
Well, yeah, the whole point is doing it without Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. The problem with audio is making sure, one, the microphone can pick up sub or superhuman hearing, and the speaker can also emit sub and superhuman hearing.
Yeah, it's a sensor fusion. You can use a combination of multiple paths depending on the environment. It can learn the structure of the environment and the noise, sort of structure of that environment. It's essentially BrewView applied to the delivery of an agent file.
And Robel, forgive me, I don't know how to pronounce that. I did try beyond QR codes. I tried multiple QR codes, taking up more of the screen real estate, including color as an additional source of data, and also figuring out what the highest resolution I could decode off of the phone. I wanted to hit a megabit per second, but it didn't work out visually.
I couldn't get a mega. I couldn't get much more than about 200, 300 kilobytes a second. I think that's the limitation of the visual. But when you combine it with other components, you can get it way, because there's a lot more options when you start looking beyond the visual spectrum. Here, I'll pop that in here for you. Point yours at mine and see if there's some kind of combination.
You need the decode side, right?
Yep. And this is all using all the crazy stuff that I've developed. Here's the benchmarking. You can see how I benchmark. Here's the ADRs, all the things I did to build it. Here's some sample images you might. Yeah. Anyway, productive That was me on vacation. You should see how productive I am when I'm not on vacation.
Hard enough for us to follow you.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? I think the mycelial system might be the craziest though. Like,
so Roof, we need Agent Smith approach now. Like, how do you create other agents, agent roofs now, to continue the work?
I don't know. We're in an amazing time, right? Like, this is literally me, on vacation, having the occasional chat with my AI while I'm watching whales. Oh, can I communicate with whales? Yes. I created a system that allowed me to communicate with the whales. Now, did the whales come over the boat because my system was working, or were they already there? I don't know, but I did see a whale. So there you go. I can show you that one as well.
So coming back to this super simple question, Rube, that I think we started at the beginning, and you dove into super complexity, but just the simple question about getting RuFlow to work with the multiple different models, as you've said, that's just a RuFlow feature, right? I haven't even gotten that to work properly. Can you just walk us through setting that up?
So depends on what you're trying to do. So you're trying to replace Claude Code, or what?
No. I mean, we have max subscription, so it's like, it sounds like we have the dependency on Claude Code, but like for example, this morning, Claude models weren't working at all, 529 error, and this happened to me yesterday. Like I'm sick of that, and when we run out of our subscription, when that happens, I mean, we're doing all kinds of things to make it more efficient, not use the highest end models for other tasks, but just kind of setting that up optimally inside of RuFlow. So, and being able to use the other subscription accounts and other models, like that's just a trick that I haven't gotten working right. Maybe others have.
I've got a where did I do that? I've got an LLM proxy in RuFlow that I use. Again, I build this stuff for me, and I'm like, whatever, if someone else figures out how to use it, by all means. But the LLM proxy for me allows me to duplex, I guess duplex is the right word, between Codex and Claude. So often, I actually use Codex at this point more frequently than I do Claude Code. I think it's, for the things I'm building, it's actually better and more capable. But
are you like right there? Are you starting a session with DSP opening up in Claude Code, or is the session a Codex session? And it's like elementary questions.
Yeah, that's a whole other 1 sec. Let me see if I can find where I put that.
Isn't it if you can run an NPX command or an NPM command, and you can run it in any harness? So it should work in Codex as well.
Yeah, I don't think I published this. This is private. There is a proxy. So what the proxy does is it allows so Claude Code sits independently. It's a harness. It sits independently of Claude Code or Hermes or whatever your preferred host is. And then but it looks and acts like essentially the endpoint for whatever service in which it needs to use. So think Claude or OpenAI or DeepSeek or Kimi K3, and it will adapt itself to the particulars of that particular API chat completion endpoint. Now, the benefit to that is I can also independently monitor things like 529s, errors, latency problems, and if certain things are failing or just slow, the system can automatically adapt itself and say, okay, right now we're going to switch from using Claude Max to using Codex, using the Codex-P option, which still works just fine. And then my Claude Code session just keeps continuing to work. Inversely, if I'm using Codex and Codex runs out of capacity for whatever reason, it can switch and say, well, now I'm going to use DeepSeek or something else. So the proxy itself is handling that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what what I want to do. But it sounds like you haven't published that.
I did publish it. I just haven't put a lot of detail into how to use it. That sounds like another. It sounds like, and that might. Where did I put that? Too much stuff to remember. I think that's in the MetaHarness repo, if I remember correctly.
Mark, I'd also suggest getting a GLM subscription. It's pretty cheap.
Yeah, actually, if you look at some of the numbers from today, the DeepSeek V4 is the cheapest, best model right now available.
Yes, yeah. Cheapest DeepSeek V4 is where it's at. And remember, Paleo Frontier, the best model at the cheapest price.
Yep.
As of earlier this week, they dropped the price.
Yeah.
DeepSeek V. Now, keep in mind, just remember when you're using GLM or you're using DeepSeek, the Chinese are training their infrastructure on your data without question. So if you're doing something where you don't want the Chinese to see your data, don't use the hosted Chinese model. They're 100% using it. And that said, so is Claude and OpenAI. Look, they even put it in their terms of use that they're training on your data. So just be aware. Don't go putting your personal identifiable information into those models if you don't want the Chinese to see it.
Yeah,
the other one I was
the other model that's really good is sorry, go on.
I was just going to say the other one is Grok. So Grok has come out today.
Yeah, I just put up this Deep SWE, so we're all kind of looking at the same thing. So if you pop that open, you'll see the Pareto Frontier. Really what's there. I've narrowed that just to the leaders.
Yeah, but I've seen some really good stuff with Grok. So give that a go for 30 bucks a month. Try it for a month and see how you go. But I've seen some really cool stuff, especially on video generation and image generation. It's very, very good.
Yeah.
Are they also still copying the environment where it's launched back to wherever?
Yep. It's the Chinese. Why are they giving away their models? Let's be clear. I'm not anti-Chinese models, but and the Americans are doing the same thing. They're just the other end of the spectrum. Now, the reason why they can give it away at such a cheap price isn't because the model is cheaper. It's the same, sort of GPU costs that they're going to use to host these models. They're using this as a kind of lost leader to get the data from from the Western world.
That's right.
That is it. That's 100% the reason. And as long as you're aware of that, it's not a conspiracy. It is exactly what they're doing. Just be cognizant of it. And now the only way around that is to just host it yourself.
There are plenty of independent hosts of the open weight models. So you can select those ones if you prefer. You pay, I think it's 30% premium, but at least they have a Western entity you can sue if you think they're doing something naughty.
Yeah, that's a good point. But going out and buying an H200 is prohibitively expensive. So, there's not a lot of options.
No, but you can rent an 8x H200 for, I think, $50 an hour. So as long as you can optimize your inference enough to keep that server pinned, it'll be fine.
Well,
it also
$50 an hour. That's times 24 times 30 days in a month. That's a decent bill.
I agree. So my objective is to try and make my agents productive enough that that bill becomes affordable.
Yep. Or just don't bother with the GPU, as we discovered today. Most things don't even need it anyway. So just optimize for the parts of the model that you need and disregard the rest. Then you can run it on your Mac Mini at no cost at all.
That Hydro must be really cheap up there.
It's Mac Mini. It's like how much? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm paying 31 cents a kilowatt down here.
Oh yeah, we're not paying that. Where are you in New York or something?
I am.
Yeah, I think you've got the highest hydro bill in North America there, don't you?
San Diego has it worse. In peak areas, it tops $1 per kilowatt.
Yeah, but they get better weather.
Debatable if they're running the ACs that hard to justify spending $1 per kilowatt.
That's a debate for another time. We're almost out of time. Anything else? Any last thoughts from you guys? Like anything else you want to cover?
So coming back to that answer, Rube, what would you say? What to get RuFlow working with multiple models? What is, what do we set up, and are we running it through Codex? Are we running it through Claude Code? Is kind of what are the steps to do that? Can you walk through that?
You're going to use my proxy. Here's the I'm going to give you guys the ADR. This is generally how I'm handling it. Again, there's ADRs for all this stuff that I'm doing. You just got to find them.
Yep.
And so this is the general structure. So I'm creating a local proxy using my meta proxy. This one's using my Cognitum one. So if you want to use that, but you could replace it with your own, whatever. But you could get up and running just by running this command.
Mark, I'm happy to catch up with you as well to show you how I do it as well. Separately.
Yeah. Who said that? Lyle?
Lyle. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, there's just too much stuff to try to cover everything. But this is where you want, this is point at this, and Claude will take it from there. So you get cost optimization, routing, all the different things you want. Runtime packaging.
Looks like Google just dropped 3.7 Flash.
Oh, we'll have to check that
Give
out.
it another hour and all the different aggregators will start reselling it.
Their last few models have kind of sucked.
Is it going to be embarrassing or great success?
I do not expect frontier performance, but if on at least a cost per task basis it's acceptable, I'll use it.
Why do you think they're struggling so much? Like
all the
it's
deep
not
learning
like
went to Anthropic.
There you go. I guess that's yeah. 3.7 trash seems about right.
They lost a lot of good people.
Yeah, but based on the metrics that they provide, it seems to be pretty good per the pricing, at least. We'll have to be testing and trying it out.
Oh, good to hear from you, Timu. Hope all is well. I gotta jump, guys. I got another call. So
thank you, everyone. Thank you.
We get another call tomorrow, 12 o'clock Eastern. Show me what you got. Tomorrow's your day to show off. So if anyone wants to do a demo, show up.
Thanks, Ruth. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Talk to you soon.